Now, depending on the degree of crystallinity, this material is classified into at least 4 types. Although it is a material, now for that matter, any flexible material or the polymeric material, it has both crystalline areas as well as amorphous areas in its structure. If a material is having more amorphous or more amorphicity, then it behaves like a flexible material. When the degree of crystallinity increases, it behaves like a rigid material. So you might have seen plastics do occur in the form of a film, which is flexible, and also in the form of a sheet, which is partially flexible or a bit rigid or tough, and containers, which are rigid enough or rigid more, which requires more force to break. The entire structural changes is attributed to degree of crystallinity in the polymer. Now, if you look at the, if you remember the initial class where we talked about branched polymer or the linear polymer, that information can be remembered here while understanding the amorphicity or crystallinity. Now, assume that you have a polymer of this nature, right? A polymer of this nature. It is more amorphous because there are no crystalline areas. And how does the crystalline areas look like? A crystalline area looks like this. Got it? Now look at the differences between the polymer that has been drawn above and below. Now the first one is primarily a polymer having near zero crystallinity, and the other one in which you have partially crystalline areas, and these areas are considered as crystalline areas where the polymer is totally packed or tightly packed in certain areas. If the tight packing is more in the polymer's structure, then you have more amount of crystallinity. You see this one here, 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 tight packing here. So percentage crystallinity will increase if this kind of tight packing is there in the polymer. So depending on this, right? Depending on this, you find that the amorphous or crystallinity may range anywhere between 0 to 50%. May range between 0 to 50%. Now, if it is between 0 to 5%, still it is considered as an amorphous material. Now, an amorphous material, right? An amorphous material, purely or near pure amorphous material, is heat stable up to only roughly 67 degrees centigrade. However, when the crystallinity is increasing to near to 45%, the heat stability is increasing to near about 160 degrees centigrade. That means when the crystallinity is increasing from 5 to 45% roughly, your material is getting more and more heat stable, and that material can be subjected to thermal processing or heat sterilization applications. Now, although we say that polyethylene terephthalate can withstand autoclavable temperatures, it depends entirely on the degree of crystallinity, and hence not all PET will be autoclavable. One of the common example you might have witnessed in the market, you might have bought a bottle in the name of PET bottle for filling and storing water in refrigerators during summers especially. And suddenly you feel that you need to wash it with warm water, or maybe you want to store hot water. You find that the bottom gets shrunken. It is PET. Technically, it should withstand 121 and above. But warm water or boiling water of nearly 100 degrees centigrade, if you pour in it, it gets shrunken. That means it is losing its heat stability because of the lower crystallinity percentage in it compared to the highly crystalline one. So this has to be remembered. Number two, if you look at the other properties of polyethylene terephthalate, it is having very good transparency or excellent transparency. It is having very high tensile strength, that is, you can stretch it nearly about 500 times or above for LDPE and not less than 100 times for PET. So the polyethylene PE is nearly 500 times stretchable to its original length, while in comparison, PET will not be having that great tensile strength, but good enough of nearly 100 times stretchable. That means if you have 1 inch length of polyethylene, then you can stretch it to nearly 500 inches of polyethylene, right? 500 into 10. So initial length 500 times. So that much time you can stretch it. But in case of polyethylene, it is less, but still good enough for most of the applications. Now, the biggest advantage what we have with regard to polyethylene in food industry is its serviceable temperature. The serviceable temperature of polyethylene terephthalate is between minus 60 degrees centigrade to plus 220 degrees centigrade, indicating that this material is suitable for frozen food packaging applications as well as for autoclaving or sterilization or microwavable or boil-in bag kind of applications. This itself will speak about the popularity of the material, and another important aspect of this material is its excellent chemical resistance. Now, during last year, that is 2019, there was a survey and study conducted by Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, where they exclusively studied the safety aspects of PET. Whether there is any migration, whether there is any this thing, right? Safety related issues with most of the plastics for that matter. And in this study was conducted in partnership with Indian Institute of Packaging. Now, the study revealed that among all the plastic packaging materials used for food applications, polyethylene terephthalate is the safest plastic with near zero migration, near zero migration. So it depends on what is the source of the PET and what are the other additives that are incorporated, but polyethylene terephthalate has the least amount of additives incorporated, and that is the reason why it has least migration and therefore the safest packaging material. Right? Now, another aspect which is common with most plastics which are transparent in nature is when metallization is applied or metallization is performed, then the vapors, aluminium vapors are deposited on the plastic film, and it greatly improves the optical properties or the light barrier properties, as well as it reduces the WVTR, water vapor transmission rate, and also the oxygen transmission rate, ending up with much better properties for food applications. Clear? So you may be wondering why I have kept these two different images here, just to show that polyethylene terephthalate is a most commonly used outermost layer in FMCG goods, fast moving consumer goods. And why it is applied over FMCGs is it has an excellent reverse printability ability. Reverse printing ability. That means you can print it from inside of the film and laminate it with another layer, so that if someone wants to tamper the print using some or the other solvents, he cannot do it because print is from the bottom side or the back side, but it will be visible as if it is printed on the top. So this ability is very much with PET, and so it is much popular. The other aspect of PET is you have seen in the market, for example, maybe any of the beverage manufactured by PepsiCo or the Coca-Cola. If it is Mirinda or if it is your cola drink or maybe some other drink, bottle after usage, if you want to use the cap with another bottle, most of the times you feel that yes, one cap is perfectly fitting with the other bottle. This is because almost all PET bottles are manufactured using a technique called injection blow molding of preforms. PREFORMS, preforms. Injection blow molding of preforms. Now, what is a preform? From an extruder, when a PET material is extruded, it is extruded in the form of this thick material with the neck of the bottle finished, complete, I mean, in all aspects, complete in all aspects, so that it can just fit with the cap. Whereas the bottom portion is open in the sense it is free, which can be converted into several designs. Now look at this bottle which is shown here. When it is made out of a preform, the portion where the screw or the screw threads are visible, it remains intact. But while injection blow molding, this portion is not subjected to heat, whereas the bottom portion is subjected to heat in this aspect, the bottom portion here. When it is blown with hot carbon dioxide or nitrogen or any other gas into a mold which is hollow and has some shape, when the PET material is brought to its softening point, it expands like a balloon into the cavity. And once it acquires the entire shape, we try to cool it immediately. I'll show you the images. Cool it immediately, then it acquires the final shape. So most of the intermediate packaging material manufacturers, they get this preforms from big suppliers and convert into different shapes and forms as per the requirement. Now, a 200 ml Bisleri water bottle or 1 liter Bisleri bottle almost have the same cap. You might have noticed that this is possible because the threaded screw opening or this area, right, is preformed, so there is no major change and most of the caps fit this particular preform. Right? Let us move to the other segment. I'll give you a brief information about how the plastic resinous material is converted into packaging materials or packaging forms. When a plastic material, may be polyethylene, polystyrene, polypropylene, PVC, PVDC, nylon, whatever it is, including PET, when it is procured from a petrochemical industry, it looks like these kind of crystals. And they are called as either resins or pellets. Now, a resinous material or a pelleted material, many a times in its pure form is not used for converting into a packaging material or packaging form. It need to be added with one or the other additives. For example, the common additives what you use are the pigments. Once you add pigments in an extruder and again repelletize them, then they get converted into this kind of colored pellets. This pelleted resins or colored or additive incorporated. This is only a colored one. It could be a plasticizer, it could be an antioxidant, it could be an anti-static agent, right? There could be a UV light stabilizing agent, etc. So they are incorporated into the pure materials and obtained. These materials are later converted using different techniques to either obtain sheets, right, or thermoformed containers, or extrusion blow molded containers, Here, extrusion blow molded means while it is getting extruded, the thick resinous material is blown so that a cavity occurs or a hollow container is obtained at the end. And the last important technique is injection molding of the plastic. When this kind of materials are subjected to injection molding, you end up with these kind of materials. Maybe the crates used in dairy industry, fruits and vegetables, the combs, soap trays, etc. The examples I've given earlier. These are all the different materials that get converted. And depending on the conversion technique, the end product will change. Look at this. A simple plastic extruder containing or fed with plastic granules, right? Similar to a food extruder, it is passed from one end to the other end, but the die structure and nature will be totally different. The screw design will be totally different from what we use in food products extrusion. Once this is extruded, when it is extruded through a slit die, the molten plastic material is obtained and immediately it is rolled in chilled conditions so that the hot material is cooled immediately and its shape is intact, and with which you can obtain the rolled plastic film. And this is what a rolled plastic film you commonly find in a dairy industry or any other food applications, right? Non-food applications too. Extrusion technique used for casting of films. Same casting technique, but here through the extrusion in this blown film technique, through the extruder, the extruded material is blown using an inert gas, maybe CO2 or nitrogen, and the material will be blown similar to a tube, and at the end the stretched material is collapsed and converted into a film and again rolled back. There are two big advantages of blown film compared to the plastic film or the cast film. In the cast film, it is a single sheet without any edge. I mean, without any closure. So when these kind of rolls are mounted on a form fill seal machine, it is converted into a pouch, right? That technique you already are aware. You might have understood in the market mill course and the other courses how a machine works. However, in this case, the big advantage of this blown film is from the two sides, it is similar to a tube, like your cycle tube. There is no need for joining the sides, only the top and bottom has to be sealed. Big advantage. But if you don't want that, because when you are expanding, the width will increase. The width of the blown film that is coming out will increase, and because of which most of the times industry people will cut this roll into two so that the production capacity doubles. So ultimately, either you can use it in the form of a tube or cut it using a slit knife, and you can get double film later, which you can use it similar to the earlier cast film on an FFS machine. This is a typical one, how it is getting expanded from the extruder. The normal width is like this, but when it is blown in presence of hot air, the diameter of the tube getting increased, and the increased diameter is getting collapsed at the top, and that increased diameter containing film is rolled at the end. This is a transparent one. Yesterday, I told you about the orientation process, and look at the orientation process. From the extruder, the film is extruded or casted. If you apply the force only in one direction, in this direction, that is called as machine direction. It is called as a monoaxial oriented film. But when you are trying to stretch the film using different stretching mechanisms, and the width is also increased, and immediately the increased one, this is occurring in the hot condition or when the film is still in its molten condition or near molten conditions, or simply in its soft condition, then only it is possible. When it is cool, you cannot stretch it. When it is still hot, you can stretch it. That still hot film is stretched, and once it is stretched, if you allow to leave at the temperature, it shrinks. We don't want that shrinking, so immediately we apply or pass it through a chilling roll where the stretched material retains its stretched length. This is called as an oriented film. There's a simple form fill seal machine. How film is mounted in a vertical form fill seal machine, and here it is in a horizontal FFS machine. You can see that vertical one, very common. Next one is extrusion blow molding. Couple of minutes back, I told you that thick plastic molten mass is passed through, and the thick molten mass coming out of the extruder shown in blue color in this image is called as parizon. Thick molten material coming out of the extruder, right, and allowed to pass through mold cavities. You look at this gray colored ones, they are mold cavities. See the shape of the design, right, or the design of the prospective bottle. When thick molten material or the parizon is passed through this cavity, after the cavity is closed and hot air is blown, right? Hot air is blown. You see the air will try to reach the cavity at all the places, and it takes the molten plastic along with it, and the plastic material will collide with the cavity and remains intact for some time, and this cavity is passed with cool water so that the molten material will retain its shape. At the end of the operation, you can recover the bottle or hollow container. You see, extrusion blow molding technique is used to form hollow containers like this, any of this. Where a hollow nature is present, you can straight away connect it with the technique, that is extrusion blow molding. This is injection blow molding. Now, similar to this, as if a bottle is formed, extrusion blow molding technique is used for forming the preforms also. These are the preforms. Sometimes it so happens that, especially in food industry, the packaging material has to be sterilized before filling it with any of the food material. So for that, the plastic material has to be sterilized. This is possible only when the material that is available with us is subjected to formation on site. On site means wherever the liquid milk or the water or any other such technique or any other such beverage is filled, you need to form the bottle then and there. And because the temperature is more than 100 degrees centigrade or so, that ensures sterilization of the material. Once that is achieved, then it is ready for filling the beverage. Right? So you can see that how a preform is injected. Later, it is blown with air in its softening condition, and at the end, you can achieve a bottle or any other container of the shape that is present in the cavity. Right? Now, the next technique is thermoforming and packaging. Now, thermoforming, this is a bit different from the other earlier techniques, because in thermoforming, the raw material is not the plastic granules, but the plastic film. Preformed film is brought to near its softening point using thermal heaters and then subjected to positive or negative pressure in a cavity, which is called as thermoforming unit. The name thermoforming comes from formation of a shape in presence of heat. The plastic sheet is subjected to heating, so it becomes soft, and when it is soft, you try to put some pressure, either positive or negative, where the film acquires the shape of the container in which the pressure is applied. So if the container is of this shape, it acquires this and immediately it is filled with the product. Most of the large scale industries where they need to fill and seal then and there, then they usually go for this technique. Now, where people don't have this facility or the scale of operations are less, they get these ready-made plastic containers and then go for filling. Most of the sweets that you find in the market in today's market, you find that these kind of containers are available and are made using this thermoforming technique. Even the ready-to-eat meals that are packed or packed meals, packed lunch, you find that these kind of trays, right? They are also thermoformed. Your dahi cup, yogurt cup or ice cream cup, Srikhand cup, they are all thermoformed. Now, before ending today's class, let us discuss about the plastics recycling codes. Now, many a times you find these numbers in this recycling code, this a triangle with arrows, continuous arrows, they are called as recycling code. Most people get confused with these numbers indicating that it is recycled once, twice, thrice, or 4 times, 7 times, whatever it is. But it doesn't indicate the recycle number, but it indicates the polymer. It identifies the polymer, and this numbers indicate the recycle codes, and they are universal. That means anywhere in the world you find this number, it indicates that this is so and so plastic. So 1 represents PET, 2 represents HDPE, 3 represents PVC, and 4 represents LDPE, 5 represents polypropylene, 6 represents polystyrene. Now, when we say it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 representing a particular polymer, we mean that they are pure and they are not laminates. Right? They are pure and they are not laminates. And if it is any other polymer or laminate, then you are bound to use this number 7. This is used for easy segregation at the dumping yards. In the municipal solid waste management technique, worldwide they have agreed to use these numbers and hence they have these numbers. So thank you. Any doubts in today's session or with regard to plastics, please let me know. Yes.
सर tomorrow का एग्जाम पैटर्न
आज का क्लास के बारे में पहले पूछो निखिल।
अच्छा सर
एग्जाम तो दे ही दोगे?
यस सर
पहले मेरा सवाल का आंसर दो यार। आज का क्लास में कोई डाउट है तो फिर कल क्लास के लिए अनाउंस करेंगे।